it's been really hot here in Los Angeles, and there's been a lot of power surges. I don't know whether that has something to do with it, but I know other people have been having some technical issues as well. It's been just so fun, but we're starting to recoup from that. We still have a couple of things that we're figuring out, but we're getting there. We're getting there, and we're thrilled to be here with you guys live. We're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. We got some great things that are lined up for you for this show. And can I take a minute to say that next week, the stuff that we've got lined up for you, I'm already so excited about it. I'm excited about a 4th of July weekend here in the United States and a long weekend, but I'm really excited about next week too. So it's all good. I also wanted to say too that if you've been tuning in the last couple of weeks, I have these crazy things on my desk, and people keep morphing them into different things. I particularly, my son made this thing. I'll lay it flat here so that you can see that there's almost nothing to the construction of it. But then we have all had such a ball playing. So this is what he made, this sort of structure. It's flat and it's got this little, but we have had so much fun figuring out all the different ways that we can fold this up and different configurations so that we can make this be all kinds of, it is so much fun. These are Lux blocks. We had the people from Lux Blocks on about 2 weeks ago, but it was on the day that we started having all kinds of, we had a short in the soundboard and we, and it grew. So we keep trying to reschedule with them, but now we have a problem with Skype. So it's not happening yet. But I told them, the good news is that every day until we have them back on, we're keeping these on the desk and we're playing with them. I have people lining up who want them. They come in a box like so, and there are all these individual little pieces, these little guys that can be snapped together in a million zillion different ways, and then you can shape them into different things. It's so cool, and they can have movement if you choose to. You can make them so that they squish and go in different directions. So do you remember those balls that they used to have that they were compact and then you could pull them apart and they got really big? It's like that, and Legos had a baby. It's a really cool thing. So those are Lux blocks, Lux, Lux blocks, and you can find them online. They're about to be in Barnes & Noble in the fall, but get them before that. I'm pretty sure that there was something about if you get them off their website that the shipping was free in the month of July, or excuse me, in the month of June. I think that's what it was. Don't quote me. I'm not sure, but I think it was something like that. So check it out and get yourself some Lux blocks. They're too much fun. And can I say that we have had all kinds of people. I have some on my desk too. All of our IT people have been playing with them. All the kids that we've had come in have played with them. All the adults have played with them. And everybody's like, why do I want to know what else can you do? There are ways that you can add on to them with popsicle sticks and dowels. And you can wire them to, they're just awesome, you guys. They're just so cool. Anyway, so those are Lux blocks. That's why they're sitting on the desk. We're going to keep talking about them until we can have them back because they're fabulous and we love them. But in any case, we're here with you today and so excited. Can you tell I'm distracted by the Lux blocks because they're so reinforcing? And by the way, kiddos with autism find them that way too. Okay, so moving on though, we're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours, and we want this to be a conversation always. We want to hear from you guys. We want to know what you're thinking. I know we've been a little sporadic about when we've been here, but if you're here with us today, we're here. We are here, and hopefully you can hear us. So Matt's going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate with us, some of the different ways, and what a baptism by fire Matt has had to come in and start with us and then all of a sudden have all these technical things, because it hasn't been Matt. It's been everything else. So his first month here has been wild and woolly roller coaster ride. But anyway, he's going to show you the different ways that you can get in touch with us here at Autism Live and some of the ways that you can be a part of the conversation. There's lots of ways to watch the show, lots of ways to talk to us. One of my favorites is if you go to our homepage, which is autism-live.com. You can be watching the live show just by clicking on that triangle, or you can watch the most recently recorded live show by clicking on the triangle as well. And if you want to look at the last 100 episodes, because you just have a hankering to do that, there's a playlist button. It looks like a little memo button in the upper left-hand corner of the computer screen. You can cycle through those. But to the side of all that is what we call the live feature. It's a series of white boxes, and if you'll put your cursor in the box that says your questions, All you have to do is type whatever you want to type, hit enter, and it shows up here. You and I can have a conversation, and better than that, you get to have a conversation with the experts that we have on the show. So that's a pretty cool thing. So I hope you participate in that because it's a really fun way for you and I to have a conversation and for you to talk to the experts. Now, I bring up the experts again because we have a lot of experts that come on the show, but I want to remind you that I'm not one of them. I'm just in the trenches with a lot of other people. I'm an ex-teacher. I'm a parent whose child was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, and he's now 13 and taller than me. How do we get there? I don't know. But it's so luscious because he's doing so wonderfully. And that happened because we got good information, had good support, and people told us where to go. It wasn't like he was diagnosed with autism and somebody said, oh, now here are exactly the steps. We had to piece it together. That's part of why I'm here every day and why I want to help you, because I got that help and I know how lucky I was. So I want you to be as lucky. We want to help you get to the resources that are meaningful to you, whether you're a parent, a teacher, a practitioner, or you yourself are on the autism spectrum. You deserve to get to the resources that will help you get to the progress that you're looking for. We know that that's not the same for everyone. It is not one size fits all. But we hope that either we hit upon something or you write into us and tell us, hey, this is where I am, this is what I need, and then we can make it from there. All right, so we love that you're here. I whenever I go out to an event, I always get at least one mom who comes up and says, I really like it when you say we can do this together, that we all hold hands and we can do this. To say that more, Shannon. So, and I always say, si se puede, we can do this. So we hold hands. You're not alone. I promise you, you're not alone. There are people, amazing minds, who are working for you. They don't even know your name. They don't know where you live, but they talk about you in meetings and say, I want to help that dad that is having trouble with this, and I want to help that mom, and I want to help that teacher, and I want to help that teenager who's on the spectrum who sees that they can do this, and I want to help that person who's in their late 20s who hasn't been able to get a job yet. Great minds are thinking of you and want to help you to get where you want to get, okay? I will tell you about them, and we'll have the opportunity to talk with some of them. So in any case, we like to start the show with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani are those experts talking about. We give you first the actual definition, then we give you the working definition, because often the actual definition means nothing to you unless you have a PhD in 17 things, right? And I love to make fun of the actual definitions. Now, our experts sometimes go, ugh, when we do our working definitions, because they're not quite as exact. But that's the whole point, right? You have to have an entry point into understanding these things. And it is important to understand the jargon, because the jargon helps us to be more efficient, more effective. If you can save 5 minutes and $5, whew, that's a great thing in the world of autism, right? And jargon helps you to do that. Okay, today's jargon is stimulus control. What? Stimulus control. Doesn't it sound like somebody is being zapped with electricity? It is not that, my friends. We're not talking about the Judge Rottenberg Center at all. Stimulus control, the actual definition, stimulus control is said to occur when an organism behaves in one way in the presence of given stimulus and in another way in its absence. Woohoo! Well, that explains it all, and now we know how to use that, right? We can all go home. Have a long weekend, right? I don't know about you, but I'm like, what? What does that mean? And how does that apply in my life? So let's go to our working definition. Our working definition is teaching someone the equivalent of when you see a stop sign, we stop. Okay, so if you think about this, this is exactly stimulus control, because we all came out of the womb and we didn't know what a stop sign was, and we didn't know what to do when we saw a stop sign. But we now, at some point in our upbringing, most of us know, I see a stop sign and I know I'm supposed to stop. That is called being under stimulus control. Our behavior is we see the stop sign and we stop. And if we don't see the stop sign, we continue to go. And if you think about this, how many things in your life are you under stimulus control? How many times do you see something and you react to a certain way? Now, media and advertising loves to take advantage of the fact that we are creatures of habit. And so they try to bring us under stimulus control for things because they want us to spend money and eat things and want things and so on and so forth. But the truth of the matter is, when we're working with individuals who are on the autism spectrum, there are some things that we want to bring under stimulus control. It could be as simple as oh, you know, the one that I love, the example that I love, when you go into a classroom, because there's cultures of things everywhere, right? You go into a classroom for younger kids, and there are teachers that have hand signals now. Some teachers have a bell, but a lot of teachers have hand signals. And the first time I went into my son's classroom, and at one point the teacher did something, and all the kids started holding up 2 fingers. And then one by one, other kids would hold up 2 fingers, and as they did it, they got quiet and centered and still. And eventually, the whole class was sitting there like this, and I went, "What's this?" What? And it's stimulus control. So the teachers train their kids that, you know, instead of having to interrupt constantly and say things, that this means I'm being quiet and I'm listening to the teacher. And that, you know, they've taught the other kids, learn through observation, that when, you know, the teacher does this, it means that, you know, when you see it, it is time for you to stop and do this and say, I got it. I got the signal. I'm sitting and being quiet. So one by one, it becomes viral until all the kids are sitting there and doing that. It's an amazing tool. So stop and think about all the different things that we already want to teach an individual, any individual, but especially for our kiddos that are on the spectrum, it might take them longer to learn something. What kinds of things do we want to bring under stimulus control? And then what kinds of things would it be really helpful if we brought under stimulus control? The possibilities are endless. We want to be mindful that we're teaching things that are healthy and proper and productive, and not just, you know, what we want. But obviously, in a classroom, if you're going to teach 25 to 35 children, there has to be a way that you have control to get quiet, right? We see on talk shows that where they have multiple guests that they need to have that because they just all talk over each other, right? And you can't do that in a classroom. You're not going to get someplace. So stimulus control. And when you are talking to therapists about your kiddo, or somebody says, yes, we want to bring that under stimulus control, that's what they're talking about, so that something will happen and that we will have taught this individual that we have a set reaction to that we don't have when that thing isn't there. It's a very, very powerful tool. How do we bring something under stimulus control? By doing it over and over and over again and giving a reward when the proper reaction happens, right? Okay, so that's stimulus control. It's our jargon for the day. It's a really good one to think about and use. All right, moving on. We always have a question of the day. This is when we ask you guys something, and we love it in particular when you guys answer this question on Facebook. I don't know if the question of the day has been going up on Facebook, but it's because we've been dealing with technical things, but hopefully we'll try to make sure that that gets up there today, and then you guys can have an opportunity to answer it, because I know you have answers to today's question. It is, what stresses you out? What are the things that really, you know, make you gazanga stressed? Because we all have things, right? I remember, I always talk about Norman on Oprah. There was a monk that Oprah, for one whole year, she just was really following this monk, and she was bringing him on the show on a regular basis. But traveling and being in airports and on trains and things stressed Norman the monk out. And so when Oprah would call and say, we want you to be on the show, obviously Oprah herself usually wasn't calling, but the booker would call and say, hey, Oprah would like you to, and most people would jump, right, and go, yeah, no, I'm going to be there. If Oprah wants me to be there, I'm going to be there. But Norman the monk was like, well, I have a routine, and there are things that I like to do, and I have my prayer schedule, and could we Skype? And they would say, sure, if that's what you want to do, you don't want to come and be in the studio with Oprah. But I used to think how great that Norman the Monk had his priorities. He knew what stressed him. I'm sure that if it was emergency and something that was incredibly meaningful to him, that he could take the plane or could take the train. But it was meaningful to him to talk to Oprah, but not necessarily to be there, right? So I do think it's important that we all recognize that everyone, even Norman the Monk, gets stressed about some things. And that we can be like Norman the Monk and pick and choose what stressful situation am I going to put myself in. Like there are some stressful situations that we can just say, that's not really rewarding to me. There's the whole thing about, is it a choice or is it a problem? And if you can't make that choice, is it a problem? So for our kiddos, sometimes we could say, well, they get stressed in situations where there's a lot of noise. And do we want to say, well, we're just not going to go where there's lots of noise? I think we want to pick and choose when we want to be in stressful situations, but I don't think any of us wants our life to be defined by the things that we're stressed by. Does that make sense? Like if you get stressed in public situations where there's a lot of noise and then you get to the point where you can't go to something that you want to go to because there's going to be a lot of people, that's not the best situation. That's something that's worthwhile working through, and we have the tools to work through that. But if it's something that isn't important to you, is that what you want to focus on? So we're going to be talking about that a little bit today, about what do you focus on, and when, especially where stress is involved, are you choosing to put yourself in that stressful situation? And a lot of times we do for very good reasons, but are the good reasons the reason why you're putting yourself in that stressful situation? So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And we always have a topic of the week, and our topic goes right along with that. The whole topic is setting ourselves up for success. Setting ourselves up for success, setting our kids up for success, setting the world up for success. How do we do that? How do we pick and choose what we're going to focus on? So wonderful show that we've got planned for you today. We've got a wonderful guest. It's her first time being on Autism Live, although it doesn't feel like it because she's been on the Spectrum with Matt Asner, and I'm talking about Kamina Ballard Dawkins. She's an amazing autism mom, truly wonderful. And she was one of the co-authors of the newest toolkit that came out from Autism Speaks last December about dealing with puberty and adolescence and some of the major issues that arise when those hormones and those years kick in for individuals with autism. We also, of course, have it's Thursday, and so this is the day that we talk about mindfulness and how we can be more mindful. And we've got a really exciting series that we're going to be doing in the second hour today, talking about how do we prevent summer slide. What can we do to prevent summer slide? So all of that, and plus the story of the day, is going to be coming up in just a little while. And we're going to start with, right after the break, our fabulous guest, Kamina Ballard Dawkins. Stick with us.
Well, today is the One Hope Act Today for Military Families 10K and 5K Run, Walk, and Family Fun Festival.
Thanks for coming out to support this awesome cause.
What I'm trying to accomplish here is to get more people involved, more people to be aware of autism as a disorder so that they can be more involved in this effort to help people find resources.
Pull that belly button in, get a nice balance there.
This is an incredible event. I'm very passionate about it. Autism is affecting so many kids across the United States, and I also support our military.
1, 2, 3, 4.
My name's Gunnery Sergeant Sean Tajma, working with the School of Infantry West. I'm currently running with 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. I personally involved with this because my son Jacob has autism. I just want to say thanks to ACT Today for what they're doing to help my family and other military families with autism.
Here we go, let's hear it for the 2nd Light Infantry.
Some of the main sponsors here, of course, One Hope Wine is the title sponsor. What we do is we donate 50% of our profits back to different partner charities, one of them being Act Today that does a fantastic job.
Act Today is very dear to my heart because when my husband was deployed, they were there when we didn't know how we were going to make things happen. They give so much to the military family, and it comes at a time when you just don't know how you're going to make ends meet. So to me, it's more than just an event, and it's more than just a grant. It's a gift.
All right, you guys, have we gone over the rules?
Thank you all to the teams, to the individuals that donated to this fantastic cause out here again this year. The event got larger.
People ask me why military families with autism. Why does Act Today have that as a special program? I'll tell you why. Because our military families should not have to fight two battles. One, to protect our country, and another to get services for their children. They move so often. Every time they move, they have to start again. We owe it to them. And it just was a tremendous success. So I just want to say thanks to everybody for taking part in it.
Check this out, Marine. See all these wonderful people? All you gotta do next year, Marine, Devil Dog, 2 for 100, sign up with me, staff or an email, and I'm gonna take you out here, do a little 5K, little PT early in the morning. After that, you got the time of your life. After that, I might even be able to get you a letter of appreciation, maybe a little libo time. How's that sound?
Sign up for next year because this is an event that comes on and on. It's a win-win situation here.
Today I have a special guest with me. What the heck? She's missing!
Here I am!
And what's your name?
Mackenzie.
And what are we doing today?
Making sidewalk paint.
And how do we do that?
I have no idea.
So, the materials we'll be needing
are 2 cups of cornstarch, 1 cup of cold water, 4.5 cups of boiling water. Be careful. A mixing bowl, a spoon, sparkle, and food coloring.
So, the first step we're going to do is we're going to take our 2 cups of cornstarch and put it in the big bowl.
Yes.
Can you do that for me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It's alright, I'll help you. Step 2, you're going to put the cold water into the bowl.
Cold water into the bowl.
Good job. Step 3, we're going to stir it with a big spoon. Good job. You're going to keep stirring it until it's all the way mixed together. So the next step is adding the boiling water. That's a little dangerous for her, so I'll be doing it myself, 1 cup at a time, stirring it together. You're going to keep an eye on me?
Yes.
So once we're done stirring the cornstarch water, we're gonna start making our dyed paint. So what are we gonna do?
We're gonna put in the dye.
Okay.
And we're gonna put in the sparkles.
All right, let's do it. I'll move this out of the way. All right, it's all you, Mackenzie. So the more food color we use, the brighter it's gonna be.
Ooh.
So let's put the sparkles in.
Now we're gonna put the cornstarch in the jar.
All right, do you wanna stir that up?
It looks pretty. We're gonna make a few more colors and we're gonna go paint outside.
See all the colors in the sky tonight.
Are you excited?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Love is the truest state of mind. Now can you see me? Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm so excited because the first time on our show, in terms of Autism Live with me here hosting, we have a wonderful guest, Kamina Ballard Dawkins. Have I got it right?
You had it right.
It's a beautiful name, but it's a mouthful, and I slaughter everybody's name, and then I have to apologize. So it's a beautiful, beautiful name for a beautiful, beautiful woman and a beautiful mom, and an amazing force in our community. So I just adore you, and thrilled that I finally get a chance to sit and talk with you, because you have been on the spectrum with Matt Asner, and I got to talk to you and meet you before that, and we had such a good time that I said I feel like you've been on the show before, but it's the first time on our show, so I'm so excited about that. And I mentioned before, you were one of the co-authors of one of the newest toolkits that came out from Autism Speaks. It's got a really long name, but essentially it's about puberty and teenagers and adolescents. And this is something that you know a great deal about, having been an adolescent at one point, but also you are the mom of a teenage girl who's on the spectrum. Yes. So that in and of itself is an amazing feat that you're here and that everybody's, okay, and that you have time to do the things that you're doing is amazing in and of itself. I think, we're going to talk about the fact that it's not easy, that there's been nothing easy. But let's start with the guide and take just a minute for people who maybe didn't see your interview on the spectrum. What kinds of things are people going to find in the guide that will help them to negotiate this really difficult time?
Well, Shannon, first of all, I'd like to thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on your show.
Me too.
We did connect so well, and, I was really excited to get here. And I think it's really important for parents to go back over that, and we talk about what's called the Puberty and Adolescence Resource Toolkit. And it's a toolkit for families that also can be taken to providers. And what's in that is, me being the co-author, it was a collaborative project between parents and professionals that are going to give you practical tips about puberty. It also tells parent stories. Things that you can look forward to are not just the science portions of what the difference is between puberty and adolescence, but also scripts that you're going to be able to share with your child. And for example, one of the puberty toolkit inserts are about using yourself as an example when it comes to things like self-care and private and public behavior. What to do, how that's appropriate to keep our kids from being abused. Yeah. And it gets really real when it comes to things that we are dealing with, sensory issues that may affect behavior, elopement, aggression, things like that puberty that happens when not only when you're typically developing, yes, but when you're on the spectrum, of course. So, I really think that all parents can learn from it if they have a 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 child, year old child. But especially for our adolescents that are on the spectrum who may be high functioning, but not just high functioning, that may be nonverbal, low verbal. And then of course in the back it gives really great resources to other places and other things. And in the front cover you can see the insert of the people who really made the toolkit, and inside it we've included pictures of ourselves and our kids. Yeah. And so it was definitely a labor of love, but from a whole team of people who really sat there and thought about what it would take for a parent on the spectrum to come to grips with this time period. And of course I'm actually living it because my daughter's now 13, but when we started the toolkit, she was only 9. Right. So I knew, and that's how it actually came about, because we knew that it was going to be time soon, and I was like, it's going to be time, what do I do? Yeah. And have a female, like I have a little girl on the spectrum. Yeah. And so I was just like, well, she's not little anymore, Shannon.
I hear that. Now. I hear that.
But, when she was little, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this little girl? And then, so that was really something, but you know what I want to say, that it grew me. Out of that experience and out of writing all of that down and researching. And there's a mom who has a 13-year-old daughter who's nonverbal. And both of the girls are, I don't know, they're like running a race. And she and I text and call each other, and this puberty toolkit just really bonded us together. But it also showed so much growth for the parents to also collaborate with professionals doing this. So it's sponsored by Autism Speaks Autism Treatment Network, and which is also funded through the ARP. And the toolkit is available on the asatn.org website.
And I think it's one of the lesser known, most fabulous tools, the toolkits, right? Because, and there's so many toolkits that are available and they're free. People talk all the time about there aren't resources. And yet every day more and more resources are available. But the toolkits in particular are fabulous. And I think it's the best toolkit that there is.
Thank you.
And that's saying something because there are some amazing toolkits. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, you know, my child's 3, so I don't really know if this is the toolkit for me right now. And like maybe I would agree with you about that, but I think you're right. 9 is a great time to start that toolkit. But if that isn't the toolkit for you, please take a look at what the other toolkits are. There is a toolkit for you. I remember when there was like the first toolkit and then there were 10 toolkits. I do. And then, because Autism Speaks was starting right about the same time. They were, I think, a year ahead of us as my son was being diagnosed. So I sort of feel like we got in on the ground floor of looking at stuff. And but there are so many. I think there's more than 300 toolkits right now, and that might be me just like totally dreaming. But there's lots of toolkits
from different organizations as well.
There you go.
But I wanted to make sure, and I appreciate your compliment in that, because you know we really did a lot of research. It took us like 2 years to write, and we did a lot of research to make sure that it was an homage to what was already there, but actually filling the gap for what was still yet left unsaid.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there will be a revision at some point in the future. This just came out December of last year, the Puberty and Adolescence Resource Toolkit. But it was not without thought that we went into this toolkit thinking of the quality of life that these children have and the quality of life that the parents would have with the child throughout adolescence. You know what I mean? So basically, I just wanted to give a little shout out to those other toolkits too, because that was the reason why it kind of popped up. We kind of course, looked for all the information that was out there to see, and then we saw the whole, fielded, but then complemented the other things, which is something that I think that the ASATN ARP deserves a lot of credit for.
Wow, and we completely appreciate that. So if you want to find any of the toolkits, I don't know if there's an easier way, but the thing that I always tell people, go to autismspeaks.org.
You can go to Autism Speaks.
Hit the resources tab, and then you will see toolkits, and then you can go and look at is there a better way, or is that?
You know, that's great, because I know that people are already on the site looking for information.
Yes.
And so Autism Speaks, and literally, if you pop in puberty, you're going to find it.
There you go. There you go. All right, we've got so much that we want to talk about with Kamina, and we want to talk about her particular situation, and we also want to talk about a very exciting trip that she went on to Washington, D.C., plus more. But we're going to take a short commercial break, and then we're going to be back with more of that, talking with Kamina Ballard-Dawkins. Stick with us. Mid-swing on this wonderful day, this wonderful walk with Mr. Matt Asner. Talk to us about today's walk. Do we have any facts, figures, numbers, or just pure emotion?
Just pure emotion. I'm about to get the numbers. We'll see what it is. Okay. I think it's probably close to 1.6, probably. That's my feeling. But it's incredible. We had 55,000 people plus here today. And you know, honestly, I've been here 7 years. It gets better and better and better. So.
And really what you've fostered here today is hope. I know that's your favorite 4-letter word.
Where are we without hope?
Where are we?
Really, I mean, seriously, where are we without hope? Hope is everything. Hope is eternal.
This is a pretty big event. Every year I love it. What does this event mean to you?
Well, I just think it's great that you see so many people coming out to support, autism.
So we're here with Max Burkholder. Life is a whole community of people that are going to love you no matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter what you do. And that's the autism community. Are you okay with this? Is this a good thing?
I'm pretty okay with it. This seems to be a pretty happy, supportive community.
Well, what did you learn about autism through portraying this wonderful character?
Sort of the individuality of it, like with autism spectrum disorders, a tendency is to sort of generalize everybody with sort of the same degree of affliction as sort of exactly the same, and very generalize them a lot. But something I found while just talking to everybody, and that I tried to put into the characters, just the sense of individuality that all of them have, everybody has. And so at a certain point it became not really even portraying autism, it just sort of became portraying the character.
I want to thank you on behalf of everybody for what you do.
That's very sweet.
To bring awareness and to raise money. That's a tremendous, tremendous legacy. But as a dad, you've got other things that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
I want to know, as a family, if you have any advice, what's been something that's been helpful to you personally?
Get your autistic kids out in the community. I mean, my son's got a guide dog, so he goes to a lot of cool places. He surfs, he skis, does gymnastics. He's actually trying Hebrew school. I'm not quite sure if he knows what's happening there, but he does all kinds of cool things, and he has a lot of friends. Right now, most of his friends are the adults who take care of him, and over time, hopefully he'll have more friends who are his age, and you'll see him walking around, and people won't be nervous around him. The dog's been very helpful with that. It's like the dog is like the most infectious thing in the world. Like, everybody wants to be near the dog, and he sees that, and he gets some of that affection laid onto him. So as a family, we're just there to support Tyler and make him happy.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are here with the fabulous Kamina Ballard-Dawkins, and we've been talking about, she's one of the co-authors of the toolkit, and I always mess up the name of it. So what's the name of the toolkit?
Let's just say Puberty Toolkit.
Puberty Toolkit, but it's puberty and adolescence and so much more than that. I like it. It defies description because it's got so many fabulous things in it. And I had run into you at Stephanie's Day just a couple of weeks ago, and you were about to go to Washington, and then we got to see on Facebook that you had some amazing pictures of an amazing event. Talk about what this thing was. Why'd you go to Washington?
Well, it was our Autism Speaks Autism Treatment Network, and we'll just use letters from now on. Sponsored by ARP. It was the ATN Network Steering Committee meeting, and we have it in Washington, D.C., and I am the FAC co-chair, the Family Advisory Committee co-chair, which is, so we are a binational organization. It has 14 sites, 2 in Canada, including 2 in Canada. So we all come together and we talk about amazing, wonderful, fabulous things that we are focusing this year primarily on family integration with the FAC network. And I really believe in that. I really believe in family-centered care and family integration, but I was also given the honor to present on reaching underserved families and underserved population, and I spoke on what exists in LA, and we all get together as a meeting of the minds to see how other sites can benefit from our knowledge being so multicultural here.
Yeah.
But there was also other presentations on how you reach underserved communities and what that actually meant, what disparities actually mean, because most people might think race or socioeconomic status. It could also mean rural areas and other things. There's been some amazing talks about how to reach those children as well, and the whole purpose of having these conversations for me was to represent what I call the term that I didn't create it, but I'm coining it, is a phrase called a cultural broker. And what cultural brokerage is a community healthcare worker that is of ethnicity and or the equal or like socioeconomic status, rural status, it would be one of their own going to go talk to their own.
Okay, somebody they can relate to.
Somebody that they can relate to
Okay.
in one way or another. And what that does is it creates what I call a bridge to care, so that more families are able to be served
Yeah.
and able to be diagnosed and able to receive the proper interventions and so many other things. And it was a pleasure and it was a complete honor to be able to represent that and speak a little bit more about that, which is why you always see me in the community.
Yeah.
I'm at Stephanie's Day.
Yeah.
I'm at Tools for Transformation. I'm where I need to be to help people.
Yeah.
And to help my community. And so that was really what it was about. And honestly, as a side note, I think this is great. I was going to propose legislation for a universal access bill that I wanted to try to get. But then I found out Hillary Clinton's team was already on top of it, from universal access for underserved communities and families all the way through adulthood and work programs. And I was impressed when I read it, and I was like, oh man, she cut out some of the work. Let's see if she I'm gonna stay on her as soon as, she better not get in there. I'm gonna be back up at Capitol Hill on that day saying, hey, this is what you were saying you were gonna do, and this is what our families need. And so that cultural brokerage extends all the way to the White House, and we're not joking around. It's the children who are diagnosed 2 to 3 years later than other children, and then they don't get the proper intervention. There's no early access to care. There's nothing, and it really affects their lives for the long term. And so I always relate that to my own personal situation. I know we'll get into it with my daughter, but of course I do everything from a mom perspective. Okay, I'm a mom first.
Yeah.
Right. And so all of these things are great, and I appreciate when you call me a force, but there's something driving that force.
Yeah. Your why is very strong.
Yes, there's a why, and I have more than one why. So and now I have a why for other people. So it's about being also an outering parent, not just worrying about my child or my family, my nephew. I'm thinking about all the children who are like our children, who have yet to have that opportunity, and just thinking about that as a global issue and making this a global community.
Absolutely. I think, we talk about the phrase that we use on the show all the time is about it's not a level playing field. We have a live feature, and we ask people to write in, and we tell them it's completely anonymous, and we want it that way so that people can ask whatever they want to ask. But I say to them, include as much information as you can. But unfortunately, one of the pieces of information that's really helpful to us is if you let us know what the biggest major city is close to you, because it's not a level playing field. If you're writing to me from Arkansas, the resources I can tell you about are so vastly different than if you're writing to me from New York State.
Yes.
And that, to me as a parent, that's one of the things that gripes me so badly. We're an international show, and people will write us from countries all around the world, and obviously it's going to be different in those arenas, obviously. But the fact that we live in the United States of America, and it is supposed to be united, and that we do not yet have a level playing field for autism or other disabilities, honestly, but I think the gap for autism is so much bigger. It's horrifying to me. And the fact that, I love that the community uses the phrase underserved populations with the S, because it's not defining it and saying, oh, it's this community, or it's this religion, or it's this race, because it defies that. When we talk about underserved populations, I think there are more underserved populations than served populations.
Now, we'll have to state the numbers on that, but we'll have to go back and look at the numbers. But you know what? That's the reason why I speak up so loudly, and we have a site in Arkansas.
There you go.
I love those people. We get together and we talk about what happens at the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles site in the Arkansas site.
Right.
You know what I mean? We get together and see what's going on, but that's it's so funny that you even said that state because of the rural community that
Yes.
they have that are driving 2 hours away to a tertiary site to get, you know what I mean? And how all of our children are just really receiving outpatient care and emergency departments. But then I think globally, I was just a part of a movie project, Autism at the Audi Center, and it was a Czech Republic project. And there, wouldn't you know that autism is maybe 20 years old there.
Right.
There's no one over 20. They just, that has autism. Those people that have been diagnosed, those individuals have been put in insane asylums.
Yeah.
And there's no care and there's no everything. And these people got together with the help of a wonderful lady that I know, Lisa Krasner, who's the director. She works at UC Irvine, which is our new ATN site that she got together and went over there and helped them really just realize their own power, empower these people to develop their own Audi Center that really now serves families and the parents and the village, I would say, got together and decided this is what we want to do with our kids and for our kids. And so this next journey that I'm on is really, this next portion of my journey is to really tell my story and make sure that I see it as more than just my centralized focus community and see it as a global community and empower people and give them the knowledge and train them and training, and I mean parent education wise, to be able to help serve their children, because guess what? Our babies grow up.
Yeah, no kidding.
They grow up, and what do we do in puberty, and then what do we do after puberty, and then you know what I mean? And they're real living, breathing humans. So I
And
just
they
see
matter.
it as that. And they matter, and my child matters, and your child matters.
Yeah.
Those children matter.
Yeah.
They matter to me.
Yeah.
So it's really one of the driving forces behind me. Just every time you see me, Shannon, I'm like, I gotta get in there.
I see you doing
gotta
that,
get in there.
and I respect that. I totally respect that, which is why I was thrilled to have you come in today. And we want to talk a little bit about your specific circumstances, because you are so willing to tell your story. So I think we should take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about, and during the break, you know that I'm going to talk to her about Tembiza, because I got to put Tembiza on your global map. But then we'll come back and talk about your relationship with your daughter and some of the things that you've gone through that you're willing to share, so that other people can. I think when we bring things into the light, we send some of the darkness away. And not everybody can do that. And not everybody's ready to bring things into the light, but you're the strong woman who is, and so we're going to continue with that. But first, a short break, and then we'll be back more with Kamina Ballard Dawkins. Stick with us. So there's a Welcome back to Autism Live. We're very excited because as I said at the start of the show, we're here with somebody who's a force. Kamina Ballard Dawkins is here. She's an autism mom. She's one of the co-authors of one of the newest toolkits on puberty and adolescence for Autism Speaks. She is a great voice and has declared that she's on the job for making sure that underserved populations, that we understand the plight of that and that we move forward and that we get to some progress. And we talked a little bit about the fact that this is personal to her because she is an autism mom, the mom of a 13-year-old girl. And let's face it, it's different with girls. And I think we have to stop denying that, right?
Oh my God. Like, can I just
Yeah.
woo,
Yeah.
like let out one real quick for that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, having a 13-year-old girl, period.
Exactly. And
tough.
And pun included there. But right? But it is different for girls. The hormones are different, and we know that the makeup of autism is different. There are recent studies that have shown that, yes, there are a whole lot less girls, but when girls are diagnosed with autism, how it affects them is different and often more severe than it is for the boys. But the issues are different, and the support that grows and continues to grow tends to be very male-centric because the males outnumber them 1 to 5. Depending on the study that look at, it could be more than that. But so I always feel for parents who have daughters that are on the spectrum, because I know how alone I felt, and yet there were a million other moms who had boys on the spectrum.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that, about what it's like as a mom with a girl and how you solve finding resources and what it's been like for you to find your community.
So slippery slope, Shannon.
Yes.
Tough. I think to really dig into this question, I must first state to you that being a young, what I call multi-ethnic African-American female with autism is an underserved population.
Oh, yeah.
She is a demographic within a demographic that is completely underserved. Not completely not served, but just extremely underserved.
Yeah.
And so when I say underserved population, people really need to put in perspective what those disparities are. What we're actually talking about. Girls are underserved.
Yeah.
No matter what their color, socioeconomic background, or any of that, they're a girl.
Yeah.
And most of the time, there's issues with getting diagnosis because of them being verbal, or sometimes that can happen. That happened with me. My story is such that I'd like to share with you and just really be transparent about this, so in hopes that it will help someone out there really understand. My daughter was diagnosed at 4, but I fought for my diagnosis for 2 years, being told that I was a crackhead parent, a bad parent. My daughter just needed a whooping, and that it was a behavioral thing. She didn't have a dad in the home. I mean, if you can make it up, it was something negative, it came at me. And so I fought for her diagnosis, and finally getting a diagnosis that was given at 4, there wasn't a lot of opportunity for her to have that early care that she needed. And she fell behind. She fell behind in even getting the proper interventions that she really needed until she was about 8.
We have a picture of you with your daughter up right now. It's a beautiful picture. What a
there
beautiful...
she goes, and I still look the same, but guess who looks different? She's even taller than that now. She's about 5'11".
Wow.
And she's my big girl. And so she calls me little baby mommy.
There you go. There you go.
Just so you put that out there. She's very tall.
And I hate to interrupt you, but I didn't want to let it go by that there was a beautiful picture.
Thank you so much. I made sure that I show my real life and my real story so that people know that where I'm coming from. And, and so I'm so proud of her, because moving forward in that story, around 9, we started experiencing major elopement, major aggression. My kid is a runner.
Yeah.
Aggression, elopement, and property destruction were her major 3. And so it wasn't unlike my household to experience psych calls or 5150 calls and everything. And I was very ashamed of telling this for a long time. But hey, I know there's other people that are going through that are not willing to say that. And so, I made the toughest decision of my life to have my baby girl go to a residential, and that is an outpatient therapeutic residential. It's a non-medical facility, so it's more rooted in like a group home where there's other girls there. But even with that, there's issues that there's a mixed bag. Not all of them have autism and everything, but and it's just been a really tough situation to get her the help that she needed at the sacrifice of me tucking her in at night.
Yeah.
And being that mom that I always wanted to be. And now I've gotten over the random crying, but I haven't gotten over the full-on fighting for these this population and these children, because that's how much they matter to me.
Yeah.
And I see what's going on with them. And now, even in that time, we were given a double. I have an identical twin sister, and we have a group together, K-Diva. So we perform together, we're entertainers. And so we already had this life and this business together and everything. And then just 3 short years ago, we shared something else. My sister had a son, and her son was diagnosed with autism. And he was nonverbal for 3 years. And we got in there, and of course, everything that my daughter didn't have, my nephew was gonna have, right?
Right.
So I got in there, and just as much as she's, playing with them, I'm down on the floor and helping him talking. So he's fully verbal now. Yeah. And my daughter, now that she's 13, has become her own advocate. She has become a self-advocate. She goes to each and every one of her IEPs, every one of her IPPs. She can tell you what she wants. She can be like, hey, are you ABAing me? I know you're doing it. Like,
I love that.
So I've created this force of her own where she is actually able to just stand up for herself when it counts. Now, that's not to say we're out of the dark or anything. It's just really difficult being 13. Got a lot of pressure. She just finished the 8th grade. She's going into 9th grade. And we're still vocational track, so we're working on that. You know what I mean? But it's just, she's blossoming at her own rate, and I'm always there. It's no less of a job. Trust me, people. Yeah. But I at first was really judged for my decision to put her residential, but I then realized that it was a blessing from the heavens to be able to get her the care that she so desperately needed in order to become that blossoming adult that I know she's going to be.
Right.
And it's still tough every day. Every day is tough.
And I want to talk a little bit about that, because I think, back in the day of autism, back in the early days of autism, that's what everyone was told. You have to put them in a residential. I mean, more and more people are coming forward and telling those stories. That we have somebody who works here that comes on the show from time to time, Bryce Myler, whose son is working a job, graduated from college, drives his truck. He's doing so well. He's just such a light on this planet. And he's in his early 20s. When he was diagnosed, the person said to Bryce, you need to put him in an institution and walk away. At 5. That was just, so it's not even that long ago. So there's all that negative memory that's attached to going to any kind of a residential. And I think a lot of times the autism community comes to that kind of a decision with that baggage and put it on you. Because the truth of the matter is that I think, and I learn every day about parenting, but I think that the whole thing with parenting is being big enough, being strong enough, right? To do what's best for your child, not you. And I think there's a whole lot of people who judge when a child or a teenager or an adult has to go to a residential site and thinks, oh, this is the parent going, I can't do it anymore.
I've heard that directly.
I'm sure.
I've heard that directly. I'm sure. We want parents who've gone through it and come out the other side, and they say you've given up or you've let go. But you know what? That is changing.
Yeah.
From when she first went to residential, and there's been a lot of issues inside residential that I won't disclose, but it's not a walk in the park.
No.
There's a lot of things that happen in residential. My daughter has been bit by a dog in the face. Oof. She's been burned. She's been there's a lot of things that happen in residential that are not pretty for this particular child. What happens is I feel like I've just used all of this as my motivation to go out and help other children.
Yeah.
Because when just because I'm dealing with this in adolescence, first of all, does not mean other families won't have to deal with it in adulthood.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There's so many other cases that our children need to, and our adults who are real people, I will say again, living, breathing, worthy people, will need this advocacy, not only just to advocate for themselves, but for the family to have a great quality of life with that living, breathing adult person.
Yeah.
So I was told when she was younger, all of those things, but there was then other people who would come to me, just angels, just would come to me and say, you know what, you got to do this, Mom. if you want her to be independent,
Yeah.
if you want her to not be, you can't baby her. You can't. You're doing everything. You're this person. You're doing that. And I've done a lot of things trying to avoid that. But then when I finally made that decision, my daughter took off. She's like, she's blossoming.
Yeah.
She's growing. She's writing books. She's drawing because she's an artist. She can draw her own characters. And I was like, oh my God, you're going to be the first author to make their own illustrations, draw the book. She has so much going for her. I can't tell you how proud I am of this kid.
Yeah.
And I feel like when she does come home, because she comes home all the time,
Right.
she's always at the house. You know,
Right.
she's always home. She's never going to not be home. She's always saying, you know, she wants to spend time with the family and do things like that. And so we have a better relationship when she comes home. So I do want to give people the positives of that. And she's
Yes.
very independent and much more life skills. So I know she's going to be a great adult. I
Yeah.
know it now.
Yeah.
And it looked dark before, but it looks bright now. And so if there's anyone who's contemplating that decision,
Yeah.
please see it all the way through for what it is. If you know that your child is beyond your scope of care, there's broken windows in the house.
Yeah.
The police are constantly getting calls.
Yeah. It's
Make that decision.
it's a hard thing to come out of that denial, because I
Of course.
think people know that there's going to be judgment on the other side of it too.
Mhm.
But how have you gotten through the judgment part of it, of people thinking that they know what your situation is when they clearly don't?
Easy, quick answer.
Okay.
Easy, quick answer. Parent power.
Okay.
I am a proponent of talking to other moms and dads and families and caregivers with children on the spectrum, because we learn from each other, which is the reason why I believe in family-centered care, family and patient-centered care, collaboration. And that's the reason why I'm with the ATN network, because they also believe in that as well. And I give them a lot of credit for that, once again, like I said, because I get a chance to talk to other moms, that same mom who helped me write that puberty toolkit, and all the other moms that I have in my access, that I can say, hey, I'm going through this, and I can cry with them, and I can laugh with them, and they understand my life, and they do not judge me, and they know that I'm working as hard as I can, even if she's not with me every day.
Yes.
And so that's how we make it, and that's the reason why I say it's a global community, because there's another mom in Africa who feels the exact same way, that they have the same hopes, wishes, and dreams for their daughter
Yeah.
and or son.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that's an easy answer, and that's the reason why I'm so excited to be on your show, because when we connected as parents.
Oh yeah.
As moms first,
Oh, yeah.
you know, and I really feel extremely good about making sure that I'm that light, and I continue to live in that light and stop judging myself.
Exactly. That
Because
was going to be my next
I
question, is
stopped
how to,
judging myself.
yeah.
I did the best I could with what I had at the time until I learned more.
Yes.
It's like when you don't
Yes,
know
ma'am.
what you know, how did you know what you didn't know?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So it's like, I'm like, I didn't know, but then I learned. But then my job then is to take it that step closer to teaching other people, and that's my purpose.
I love it. The phrase that I sometimes have to put right on the inside of my head so that I see it before I see anything else is, other people's opinions of my parenting is none of my business.
I think we're making leeway with that whole thing. I think if you talk to an aunt mom now, or any moms, CP, anybody, they'll be like, look,
yeah,
I am doing the best that I can.
right.
And you know what I always tell them? Give yourself more credit for what you're doing, because, and that's something I never did. But I'm doing it now,
Good.
because I give myself more credit for what I actually did. You know, it was those silent things that I did, just playing with my child, that I didn't know was a therapy in itself.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
so I tell other moms that all the time, like, give yourself, and I want to tell your viewers that, give yourself more credit for what you're doing, because this is not for the faint of heart. Like,
It isn't. Well, and so my last question, because we're really running out of time here, but we've gone
Okay.
over. I apologize for keeping you longer, but it's so
No.
lovely. But so here you are, you've got this twin sister, and we all have a problem comparing in life, right?
Yeah.
And I have twin nieces, and like, I'm sure that, like, you know, their whole lives they were getting compared to each other, and it just is like, even among sisters there's that thing going on. But then when you're twin, you're identical twin, I'm sure it just goes up. And we all know that autism parents, we have this thing that we tend to do where we judge our kid against other people's kids. So how like just the nuances. I think you got to write a book, the two of you together, about the fact that, I mean, so here you are, you've got a daughter, she's got a son, totally different, like you can't even compare those. But your daughter, I'm sure at some point, because your daughter was verbal and your sister's son wasn't, that she had to have been looking and going, I wish that I had that going on. But then now her son's talking and your daughter went through a phase where things were really like there's no way to compare.
The beauty beside, the beauty of being a twin is you're really so interconnected. And I'm just really blessed to have that as a gift and have her as my sister, because the wonderful thing there is that she went through all of that with me, with my daughter. And so I returned the favor with her son, and we are the favor, the total life. Not even a favor, because I'm still there. And he is beautiful, and my daughter's beautiful, and they're beautiful in their own way. And we make sure, my sister, my twin sister, and I make sure that we keep the cup half full at all times.
Okay, so you're not comparing.
Not comparing, but helping each other.
Okay. Well, I'm impressed.
Well,
you guys are, I think a lot of us would have a hard time
not
comparing and going, well, you got this going for you, but I got that.
Fingers crossed.
All right. We have a lot to learn from all of you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for letting me just be here and talk.
Oh my goodness, it's such a treat. And if people want to know more about you in particular, if they want the toolkit, we already said go to autismspeaks.org. Click on the resources tab and then find the toolkits, and we've got there's a picture of you with your daughter on the cover of it. It's the Puberty and Adolescence Resource Tool Guide. Really amazing, and you'll see all the other toolkits as well. They're free, so you really you can't be like, oh, I can't afford it. That's not how that works. But if they want to know more about you, where should they go?
There's a couple different places they can go. I want to say kdivas.com. That is the name of my sister and I's group, and that's KDIVAS.com. And they can also email me personally for the autism stuff at kaminaspeaks@gmail.com.
Okay.
Kaminaspeaks.com is going to be forthcoming.
All right. I look forward to that. You
Well,
are a
thank
force.
you.
I'm so glad that you're the right person to be going to Washington and representing. So
Woo! Thank you.
You
I'm
go.
going to stay there.
All right. Yay. I'll pack your bags for you so
Yeah.
you can, but then just Skype with us.
Okay, perfect.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us. This has been such a treat. We went way over, but we're going to go to the A word now. And then we're going to come back. We've got the story of the day. We've got our mindful moment. And then we're going to talk about the 5 tips to prevent summer slide. You're not going to want to miss it. Stick with us. Back after these.
That's the same, okay? Now you try. You try doing it. So it's same. Go ahead. Go with same. Like this. Watch. That's put with same. You try. Put with same. Right here. Yeah, there he goes. That's the same. It's a helicopter. Very good.
If you were going to describe like ABA to another parent, what would it be?
The whole point of ABA is that you teach him how to teach himself. And I don't know that that is necessarily, I guess I didn't realize that that was supposed to happen from the beginning. I thought that now it was all a lot of work with him, and then later he would start to figure out how to do it for himself, but he's already doing it. And repetition is the underlying thing, because for, I think, young kids in general, but certainly with kids with autism, it takes them a little more time.
Touch car. No, try again. Try again, okay? Okay. Last one. Touch car. Yeah, touch it though. Touch car. Good. What is it?
completely appreciate how much work he's doing to learn, because it's normal for us too. I mean, this is what he has to do to learn these things, so it's now become normal for us.
It's still hard to sit out here and listen to the monitor and hear them repeatedly ask him to do something where he's upset and he's crying, but it always works out. It's a reminder of just don't give up, because he always eventually accomplishes what they're asking, and then I hear the reward. I hear him jumping up and down and them cheering.
You have the monitor, so you know what's happening. Does that make a huge difference for you?
I like to know. It was hard at first to hear him, have a problem.
Yeah, it's easy when he's doing great to have the monitor. It's hard when he's struggling and crying.
And in the beginning, it was hard too, because.
Well, I always thought at the beginning, should I go help?
That's how we did it, because
Yeah.
we had speech therapy and occupational therapy to start with, and if he cried, then we made it better, and we were encouraged to make it better. If he was crying with the speech therapist, something wasn't right. It was different when ABA started. Crying was sort of part of the game.
Yeah, I met a guy who at not an ABA thing, orientation that basically told me ABA, yeah, they're paid to piss your kid off. So I try to remember that. They're paid to piss him off.
Right, when
That's
you noticed
right.
one day, like, he was really pissed off, and that was because he wanted to poop. And,
Yeah,
you know?
that was actually a rough day for us, because we felt like we'd abused him almost. That we really
I mean,
never.
Well, yeah, I got what she was trying to do with him. I understood that, he wasn't being compliant. But then once we realized what it was that he wanted, it was just
He just wanted a moment to go sit in a corner, and like, us adults, we would say, see ya. But no.
Well, and I took
He
him
couldn't.
back, and when I was changing him, the whole conversation he and I had was, all you have to do is tell us. And I had him repeat, 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, that was a bad day though for us, because we felt like we had let him down. That.
Well, and
Anything?
and how and I've thought about it probably a dozen times.
He must have been miserable. He was really upset. And
But would it have been the right thing for us to rescue him and be like, what, can we just let him go? And I don't know what the right answer is.
well, we didn't think of it, and they didn't think of it. We didn't.
No, we didn't know.
We didn't know what he was trying to do, and.
We didn't know if he was just being ornery or if.
but it's a thought now. That's as hard as he'd fought anything for a long time.
I sat there even thinking that it's like, you know what, it's hard, and it's somebody else's kid, and mom and dad are sitting right here, and he's screaming, and she had to keep doing it to show him what it was that she wanted him to do.
Yeah.
And that's not easy, and I respect that.
Yeah, she had a hard time, I'm sure. It's got to enter their mind that mom and dad are right here, and I'm pushing him so hard that he's. I almost heard a couple 4-letter words from a kid who doesn't talk really. But
that was good for us to see
Yeah.
too. That it's like, because we don't know how far to push him when he's behaving.
But
that
we
way.
also have to remember that we're the parents, and that maybe there's something else going on. That's a lesson there for us. Is that maybe we should have.
Well, and
next time.
We've even acted differently since then. That if we see him going into the corner, we're trying to give him words. To tell us what it is that he's doing, so that the next time something like that happens, if he needs a minute, that he can
I never thought I'd
vocalize it.
have this conversation, but you just, Jack, can you just say poop? I'm pooping. Can you say that? And it's that would never happen again if he gets that skill. That would never happen again. Daddy, you gotta poop, or daddy poop, or whatever. Mommy
And he will.
poop.
Like kids.
He's getting there.
Kids do, and he's
learning.
He's definitely learning the value of words.
Yes, he is. He's learning that he gets not necessarily everything he wants. He gains from his vocabulary now. He gains specifics.
How about you guys? Like, you talked about how he's adjusting and getting better. How have you guys been adjusting to diagnosis, the therapy, the
We're good.
30 hours over top of your 30 hours?
We're good.
It's all good.
No. I'm just physically tired. That's other than that. Strangers that used to come into our house are now friends. It's not the same thing.
And I think it's become our normal. I don't think we would be we'd be sad for obvious reasons if it ended, because we want our son to get all the help that he can get. But yeah, to have a week without people coming in, I think would be like cool.
We'd be okay with it. But having said that, we love everybody that comes into our house.
it just is what it is, and we see such progress in him that I don't think the inclination to be free is strong enough to override the inclination to continue to watch his progress.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, if we're being completely honest, and this is the hard part of the honest part, but they help us. We've gotten great advice, and if we have issues, we can ask, and we have somebody to ask every single day, and that's all good. But on the flip side, there are definitely the days too where it's like, did we do anything right?
Yeah. There's days where
there's too many suggestions where it's like
suggestions are. It's easy to suggest when you spend 2 hours or 3 hours with somebody and go home or go to another child. Well, I got him for the next 21 hours too after you leave. Yeah, sometimes there's too many suggestions, and they don't mean anything negative.
No,
It
and I mean, some of the suggestions, even if you roll your eyes when you first get it, like, pause this movie and see if he'll take a bite. Yeah, right, sure he will. And then he does.
Yeah.
So we've learned enough,
Which
too.
kind of pisses you off.
It's like, wait a minute.
Kind of pisses me off when they're right all the time.
But I did the pausing.
Yeah, I paused it.
I did it.
You didn't pause it. I did.
And
Yeah, every once in a while we'll whisper under our breath, really. And then it works usually, so. It's just a defense mechanism, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, or we feel like Jack, I think, sometimes, too, that we've lost a lot of control of our world these days.
I'm enjoying him much more because he's not as scary to me. As I learn more about autism and about his steps forward, it's less intimidating to me. As we get more skills on how to deal with the rough times, it's less intimidating.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
Hi, I'm Kara Kaczynski, the Pocket Occupational Therapist, and we're here in Dallas, Texas at the Future Horizons Autism Super Conference. So the book is the Special Needs School Survival Guide, and it's everything you wanted to know about school. It is, okay, so it starts out with just different diagnoses that you might see, and then I explain them in clear terms, no technical jargon, and then each little diagnosis area has about, 50 to 100 activities that you can do at home or at school or cheaply and effectively. So it's just full of information that you can use right now. And the cool thing about it is at the end of every chapter are resources that you can use and access in the internet from a computer, and it's not just for kids with any diagnosis either. It's for kids that are just having trouble with handwriting or with dressing in school or transitions too. Well, both of my kids are on the autism spectrum, so it's important to me that when I learn something for other people, as I research it for occupational therapy, I want to try it at home. So then I take what works and I put it in a book, and what doesn't work gets thrown out the window. And the other thing is I've just started to research for webinars because our kids, if our kids are aging, so they start out these cute little babies with autism, and now they're getting to be teenagers and young adults, and we need help with modifying the environment for them, transition planning, and especially for IEP goal writing, for functional things that they can work on, not just handwriting, but then going beyond into the transition to young adulthood. Yeah, the misnomer at this point in the school systems is that we just do handwriting. So we are actually not handwriting teachers. We can modify or help rectify a grip that's inefficient. So if a child doesn't have that nice, pretty little tripod grasp, we can help to get that. However, when the kid's in 2nd or 3rd grade, then we look at efficiency. So if the grasp is efficient, if it's a quadrupod grasp, or if it's some kind of funky grasp, and the child can write efficiently, then we leave it alone. But if not, then we go to electronic accommodations. So OTs then can look at keyboarding and what kinds of keyboards would fit the student best. Also sensory processing, as the kids get older, it looks different. So we can look at sensory processing as it relates to function in the school. And then we also can look at behavior and transition planning. Other things we can do is work on seating. So if the child's having trouble sitting still in the classroom, we can modify that too. So not just handwriting, not just sensory, but we look at behavior, transitions, so anything that affects that student's school day. Right, so that's a really good question because sensory processing disorder did not make it into the last DSM, which is the way that medical professionals classify disorders. So it did make it into the classification under autism, but sensory processing disorder is very confusing, and a lot of therapists treat it differently. So the general overview is that sensory processing is either a heightened response to stimuli in the environment or a too low, which is hypo, response. So if the student perceives every noise around them is equally as important, or every feeling, so I'm sitting here, I can feel the chair, my sweater, the noise around me, then it's hard to concentrate and focus in the classroom on what you're supposed to be paying attention to. So we would use something, maybe a suggestion could be a weighted lap pad or some kind of fidget tool for the student to fidget with, or we can even look at special positioning in the classroom, so preferred seating. Then, with sensory, transitions can be hard because any unexpected bump in the classroom or in line can set the child off into a fight or flight, which is when they really have a tantrum and freak out. So when they're in a fight or flight mode, they may fly off the handle for no apparent reason, maybe just being bumped by another student. So it's our job to be detectives and to figure out why the student is having that meltdown. So my CDs were created for my own kids my son in kindergarten didn't like the fire drills. So he was afraid to even step foot into the classroom because the fire alarm may sound. Of course, the school's not going to say, oh, let's just set up the fire alarm for your son, Bob. So we thought, where can we get a fire alarm? So we went into a recording studio and picked a whole plethora of sounds that you couldn't control, fireworks, thunder, sirens, and we put them on a CD, and I wrote nursery rhymes, changing the words to Blender, Blender, it's okay, or different little, Mary had a little lamb is, something to do with thunder. So they're kind of fun, and that way the student can control the volume of the sound. It's not a listening therapy, there's no headphones involved. It's just a fun way to control sounds that you normally couldn't control. So they're for sale at my website, thepocketot.com.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It is time for the story of the day. Reports are coming to us from Canada. We've been talking about how there was a proposed change to the way autism was going to be funded in Canada, which had a lot of parents up in arms. And we are hearing in the last couple of days that the cry of those parents saying we are going to fight for services. Their kids have been waiting sometimes for more than 2 years to get ABA services, and then they were being told that there was a cutoff, that once children were past a certain age, they were not going to receive those services even if they had been waiting, and the parents were up in arms, calling everyone that they could, protesting and saying this isn't right, this isn't going to work, and their government has heard them. We're very proud to announce that they have added significantly more money to the fund and have made an adjustment to their thinking, and they are going to continue to fund children who are over the age of 5, and they're making a pledge that they're going to work hard to make it so that people don't have to wait as long to be on the waiting list. I want to say what an inspiration our Canadian parents are, that they stood up and said, nuh-uh, this is not how this is going to work. They got together, they were organized, and they were clear in speaking to their government officials about what it meant to them, what it was going to cost their children, and the fact that they weren't going to let it go. I think all of us have so much to learn from those Canadian parents, and I really have to give a big shout out to the Canadian government for being willing to listen to their people and hear what was going to happen if they cut all of these wonderful children who matter and who had been waiting for these services that we know are critical to give kids. So yay to those parents.
What is autism?
Yay to
What is autism?
What is
Canada
What is
for
autism?
having
What?
gotten to the point where they could see this clearly and making a commitment. We're thrilled to be able to say that there's been a big turnaround. Now, in other stories not related to Canada at all, I just want to mention, if you have not been watching the news, that there is a huge recall this week for dressers made by IKEA. This story touches particularly home to me. And Matt, if we could take I just don't want anybody to mistake and think that this is in Canada, because it's all around the world. There we go. Thank you. So IKEA has recalled 29 million dressers. And they're a particular kind that I believe that the name of it is Malm. I happen to own one of these dressers in my home. And there is a danger, because of the way the dresser is weighted, that if a child, you can open the bottom drawer. In fact, you can open all of the drawers and use them as a stepping stool to get to something. And more children are doing that. And it has resulted in the deaths of 6 children. So IKEA is recalling those dressers. I do want you to know that, like I said, I own one of these dressers. I have had this since I put it together the night before Jem was born. It is still his dresser. They're fabulous dressers in terms of holding clothes, but they do come with a strap that is meant to be anchored to a stud, not the wall, to a stud. And if you don't do that, there is a danger, and it says it in the instruction manual, that the dresser could tip over. Now, when we first got the dresser when he was a baby and I was doing everything by the book, I did anchor it to a stud, got out the stud finder, did it myself the night before he was born, and anchored it to a stud. We moved several times throughout his life, and when he was about to be 7, we moved to a place where you were charged for every single screw that you put into the wall. And the dresser was in a place where I was like, and he's big enough, it'll be okay. We did not anchor it to the wall. And it was like a month later that exactly what has happened to children that have lost their lives and been injured. There have been, aside from the 6 deaths, there have been many, many injuries. My son did exactly that. I heard the crash. I came running into his bedroom, and he was pinned underneath the dresser. He was big enough that we didn't even have to go to the emergency room. He was shook up about it, still talks about it. I was shook up about it. And I was like, I didn't anchor it to the wall. If you have one of these dressers, I want you to know that IKEA will take it back. They will give you a refund, no questions asked. If you need the strap and the screw, they will give that to you. If you don't know how to anchor it yourselves, they will send someone out. All you have to do is call the hotline, go to IKEA's website. They will send someone to your house to anchor it to the wall for you. But IKEA wants you to know that you cannot use the dresser if it is not anchored to a stud. I want everyone within the sound of my voice. I know all too well personally how easy it is for that dresser to tip over if it isn't anchored. And there you have it. Okay, we're going to take a break. And then when we come back, we are going to do our mindfulness tip for the week. Stick with us.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to, just,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism, autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
Always unique, totally intelligent, and
sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It's time for our mindfulness moment of the week, our Mindfulness Thursday tip. Today's tip is called Ring My Bell. You know, so many of you have written in and said that you love the mindfulness moment, but you want to know more mindful things to be able to do with your child who's on the autism spectrum, or your neurotypical kids that are, you know, going through a lot of stressful things. Because let's face it, part of the reason why we do mindfulness is to reduce stress. So if you have a bell in your home, you know, and you can go to a dollar store and buy one if you don't, it's a really great tool because kids usually like a bell. It's important to sit in a room and have everybody be comfortable, and then you can allow them to ring the bell or you ring the bell, and then everybody closes their eyes and listens for how long they can hear the bell ring. And when they no longer hear the reverberation of the bell, they can raise their hand, and they can take turns being with eyes open to see when do different people hear the reverberation of the bell. And what it does is it trains us and our kids on the spectrum to focus on one sense. A lot of times when we have sensory processing disorder, it's because we're being bombarded by all kinds of information coming into all of the senses. And if we begin to isolate a sense with nothing else, we can focus on it. That builds attention skills, and it helps us to inhibit our responses to the others. Now, obviously, there will continue. It's impossible unless you're in a tank to get a sound-free room. You want to make the room as quiet as possible, but you work the exercise up. So, for instance, you start with the bell. How long can we hear the reverberation of the bell? And then you can ask everybody to sit in silence for, you can start with 10 seconds and say, ask them to listen, and then when the 10 seconds are over, to say all the things that they can hear. Now, if you've got a non-verbal child, you can ask them to point to what are the things that you hear. You will see kids who will point to the lights and say that they can hear the fluorescent lights because it makes a high-pitched sound that I can't hear, but a lot of them can hear it. In this room where I'm in right now, which is a very quiet space because it's a studio, and yet I can hear the air conditioner, and sometimes I can hear, if I'm very quiet, I can hear the elevator. There are always noises, right? There's no such thing as a completely soundless room. And by allowing our kids to focus on that sense, and it is easier if we ask them to close their eyes because it closes off that sense. They still will be combating what things feel like, what they're touching, so on and so forth, but it starts to grow that ability to pay attention to one clear thing. And I think you'll use it as an experiment with your kiddos to see, can they sit still a little bit longer each time? Can they focus on it a little bit longer each time? A lot of kids, for some reason, the bell makes it very reinforcing for them. Not for everyone. Try it. If the bell doesn't work, you could find other sounds to see how long that they listen and have it stop, and how long. If you have a piano, you could play a note on the piano and they can choose which one you play. So lots of different ways to do it, but it's called Ring My Bell, and a way to help our kids learn to find that focus, quiet the senses so they can focus on one thing. It's a really cool exercise. That's our mindfulness tip for the week. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back to talk about 5 things that you can do to prevent summer slide. Stick with us.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. Today I have a special guest with me. What the how do we do that?
I have no idea.
So the materials we'll be needing
Are 2 cups of cornstarch, 1 cup of cold water, 4.5 cups of boiling water. Be careful. A mixing bowl, a spoon, sparkle, and food coloring.
So the first step we're gonna do is we're gonna take our 2 cups of cornstarch and put it in the big bowl.
Yes.
Can you do that for me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It's all right, I'll help you. Step 2, you're gonna put the cold water into the bowl.
Cold water into the bowl.
Good job. Step 3, we're gonna stir it with a big spoon. Good job. You're gonna keep stirring it until it's all the way mixed together. So the next step is adding the boiling water. That's a little dangerous for her, so I'll be doing it myself, 1 cup at a time, stirring it together. You gonna keep an eye on me?
Yes.
So once we're done stirring the cornstarch water, we're gonna start making our dyed paste. So what are we gonna do?
We're gonna put in the dye.
Okay.
And we're gonna put in the sparkles.
All right, let's do it. Move this out of the way. All right. It's all you, Mackenzie. So the more food coloring you use, the brighter it's gonna be.
Ooh.
So let's put the sparkles in.
Now we're gonna put the cornstarch in the jar.
All right, do you wanna stir that up?
It looks pretty. We're gonna make a few more colors and we're gonna go paint on the side.
See all the colors in the sky tonight.
Are you excited?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Love is the truest state of mind. Now can you see me? Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. Right now we're taking on 5 things that you can do to prevent summer slide. So what is summer slide? This is something that teachers are really familiar with. There's a period of time during the summer when our kids are usually out of school. For a lot of our kids that are on the autism spectrum, they are offered extended school years, so they might have 4 of the 8 to 10 weeks of summer when they're going to be in summer school. But even then, it's a reduced day, and then there are several more weeks where there is time off. What we know, what research has shown us with all kids, not just kids on the autism spectrum, but in particular kids on the autism spectrum, if we have worked to a point where we've got them in a routine and they're learning and they're growing, it's kind of like pizza dough, you know, you're pushing them out, and if you take your hands off of it, the pizza dough snaps back, right? That's summer slide. And so we see testing, and again, this is with neurotypical kids too, but even more so with our kiddos who are on the spectrum. If we test them at the end of the school year and see that they've gained skills and they've done well, and we don't do anything during that 8 to 10 weeks during the summer, they will lose up to 30% and more of what they've gained in that school year. So because summer slide is such a real thing, that even in total general education, when kids come back from summer break, the first 6 weeks now, the full first 6 weeks in the United States is devoted in all classrooms to relearning everything that they learned the year before. Obviously, it's in an accelerated platform because they're only taking 6 weeks to go over, review what they did the year before. But my point is that if our kids have come into the school process and they're behind because they were dealing with sensory issues, dealing with, you know, a deficit in at least 3 areas if they got an autism spectrum diagnosis, they're behind to begin with. And we're desperately during the school year trying to catch them up and keep them up to speed with whatever needs to happen. And if the neurotypical kids have a little bit of a slide during the summer, that is an opportunity for our kids, tortoise in the hare, right, to catch up. And it's so, so crucial. as a former teacher, I don't want any kid to have summer slide, but the truth of the matter is for our kiddos that are on the autism spectrum, we cannot afford it. It's an ideal time to get ahead, but how do you do that in the summer? Especially if you don't have extended school year where you are, but even if you have extended school year. So we've got 5 things to center on that you can do a little bit every day that will help you to have a good summer and to prevent slide. So tip number 1, what do you want to do? You want to read every single day. Now, it doesn't matter how old your child is. If you have a 6-week-old, read to your baby. Studies have shown how important it is to read to babies in the womb. So read every day with your kids. And it's different based on their skill level and based on their age, right? For kids who don't have reading skills, we want to help them to make it reinforcing for them to sit with us and for us to, if they like to be snuggled, to be snuggling. If they don't like to be snuggled, putting them in a chair where they feel secure and safe. Let them pick at the point when they can, let them pick their book, but make it interactive. Don't just leave them on their own. Make sure that you build into their life that it's reinforcing for you to be with them and for them to be reading on their own. I always talk on the show about how I used to give my son when he was little and so busy, he couldn't sit while I would read to him, but if I gave him a cold apple to hold, he'd try to bite it and try to lick it, and most times he couldn't, but, because he just couldn't, it was a big apple and it was cold, but holding it made it possible for him to sit and listen to me read. When you read to your kids, make sure that you are taking on character voices. Have fun. Try out being an actor yourself. Point to things. Ask questions. From the littlest baby, add to the story. So if you're reading Pat the Bunny and you get them to pat the bunny, that's interactive, but put things in that make it uniquely yours. Whatever that might be. You might make a little bunny, I don't know, but make it your own, because that's what the child will interact with. With the little kids, make sure that you're doing that joint attention thing where you look at the book and then look at them. And that builds social skills. It's amazing what that does if we do enough of it when they're little. And if they're not looking at you, you can stroke their chin. You can be like, oh, make a big reaction, stroke their chin, and help them gently pull their chin so that they're looking somewhere at you, and give them whatever they like, if that's a squeeze or a tussle of their hair, so that you're making pairings of, I'm reading and I get the thing that I like. It grows and grows and grows and grows. When they're a little bit older, take turns. When they start to point to a word and spell it out for them and get them to repeat it. It's early reading. When they start to read, take their finger and have them point to the word. Ask them questions even then. Those higher functioning questions that come later on start in those younger years about, why is the dog doing that? You can ask that question. It doesn't have to have a right or wrong answer. When your kids are a little bit older, reinforce them for reading aloud. A lot of times we think, so they're reading, so now hand them a book and walk away. If you get your kid to read out loud a paragraph every day, they will be better in social situations. It's just a fact. So, when they're reading on their own, great, reinforce them for it. Offer it not as a punishment, saying, you can't play your video games, you can't have screen time until you've read, but offer it as a reward. If you read for this amount of time, I will give you this amount of screen time. It's all in the semantics, right? But reading, we always just say reading is fundamental. Reading is fun, and reading helps our kids to grow on so many levels. So it's the cornerstone to everything. It helps with summer slide. But key things: reinforce, reinforce, reinforce. Pair reinforcement. If reading isn't reinforcing to them, pair something that is reinforcing. If that means sitting and eating chocolate while they're reading, I'm telling you, as long as you keep it on the healthy side, get your kids to think that reading is cool. Whatever it is that you need to do that. And reinforce yourself for having taken the time to do that. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and tell you number 2. Don't go away. Maybe we're not going to take a short break. Are we taking a short break? There we go. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Grandpichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh? Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable and recovery from autism is possible. Welcome back to Autism Live. So it's tip number 2 for ways to prevent summer slide. Tip number 2 is to write every single day with all of our kids. Now, you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, what about babies? We're not going to put a pen in a baby's hand and have them write. But the truth of the matter is that we want to work on pre-writing skills with our very young kids and with kids who don't have the ability to yet write, no matter how old they are. And so the first thing that we need to be working on is, so first skill is pincer grasp, and then we go to tripod grasp, right? So we need to be building these skills. Now, if you stop and think about it, what can you do to build these skills? Well, first of all, the first thing that we do is food. Things like Cheerios or other cereal, once we're at a point where our kids won't choke on them, great thing to stick on the high chair and have them put them to work to get their food. You also do this with raisins and other things like that. But again, it's got to be the right time for them not to choke on it. Pincer grasp, right? This builds writing skills. And what a great thing to do to occupy a kid. The key is it's got to be something that's reinforcing to them, right? If they don't like Cheerios, they're not going to pick them up. If they don't like raisins, they're not going to pick them up. So make sure it's something healthy, something that you would have been feeding your kid anyway, but let them do the work of feeding it to themselves. This is the pincer grasp, and this is hand-eye coordination. Ooh, great, great, great skills. Then eventually we want to get to the tripod grasp, and the way that we do this is with broken crayons. Okay, so, or with those teeny tiny golf pencils later on. So when you get a fresh box of crayons, and I know it breaks your heart because they smell so good, and you open them up and it's like, pristine. You want to pull the wrappers off of all the crayons because guess what? The wrappers are a slightly different color and it's not as reinforcing to our kids. So you take the wrapper off and get rid of it. It's also a sensory thing for some of our kids. The cold crayon often feels very good. The paper, not always so good. So you get rid of all the paper and you break your crayons in half so they're just little stubby crayons. And then you can put them in like a palette dish so that your child can pick which color that they want to do and have them drawing and doing different things. But that helps to build that tripod grasp. When you have the big fat crayons, guess what happens? Kids hold them like this. This does not build writing skills. This does not build writing skills. So I vote skip the big fat crayon, go with the little tiny crayons. If you find that your child just coloring isn't reinforcing for them, and you need to go to the big fat crayons to see, oh, when I rub this, I get a color, go ahead, do that. But a lot of our kids don't need that. Eventually, we want to get to, when I talk about writing, I'm talking about the whole Megillah, right? We first have to build up the hand muscles to be able to write. And once we get to a point where our child's penmanship is there, then we want to work on the mechanics of writing. But I really strongly suggest that in the early skill development that we just focus on getting the muscles built and then getting the letters and the numbers and having that be reinforcing. Once you have penmanship 100%, if your kiddo is like you can read everything that they write, then move on to sentence mechanics and make it reinforcing for them. Like at school, they're going to get both of it at the same time, so I think it's better at home to separate the two of them. But have your kid write every day or do the pre-writing skills every single day. Because during the summer, important time to prevent that slide. Okay, we're going to move on now to tip number 3. And we're not going to go to a break because we don't have time to go to a break. So moving on to tip number 3, which is to draw. And you might be thinking, well, now wait a second. We just talked about the crayons. We just talked about all of that. How is that different? That when we're doing writing skills, a lot of times very quickly we want to get to the point of having a child do a specific line. Sometimes we'll draw 2 lines and have them draw a line between them. And that's not really creative. That's about control. We want to make sure that there's time every single day. It will actually help with their writing skills, but we want them to have time to be creative and draw what they want. If your child is older and is resistant, I really want to encourage you to do drawing on the right side of the brain and do the exercises for it. I'm doing it with my son this summer, and it's awesome because it's all about how the brain works and getting them to see what makes them anxious. When one side of the brain is talking too much to the other side of the brain, it's drawing, but it's fascinating. But every single day giving them that kind of artistic outlet to builds the hand skills, and then ask them to verbalize, if they can, what it is that they've drawn. If they are nonverbal but use an OG device, have them typing to you about what that they've drawn to describe it. These are skills that are so important for our kiddos and will help them throughout their life. But again, it builds those hand muscles. Fabulous, fabulous. Okay, tip number 4. You ready for tip number 4? Tip number 4 is to build. It's one of the things that we've been doing here in the studio. Every single person who has come in the studio and picked up these Lex blocks has picked them up and said, oh, I want to unsnap it and created something different. They've morphed and changed. The ability to build it's I think genetically inside all of us something that we inherently want to do. It's just a matter of what do we want to build with. Some people want to build with organic material like gardening, and gardening counts under building. Other people love Legos. This is like a step up from Legos, these Lux blocks. With our very little kids, get some just wooden blocks and stack them. Here's the thing that happens when you build. You problem solve. And not only that, you deal with conflict, right? When my child was little, I remember that if we would stack blocks, sometimes he would stack blocks or he would come over and knock our blocks down and then look at our reaction. If you think about that, that's the beginning of social understanding of cause and effect. I do this and then they do that. So building has to do with more than just those application and math skills. It has to do with social skills. Give your child a chance to build. And again, it does not have to be a toy that you buy, although there are some cool toys to buy. But, you can take kids in the backyard and make mud pies. That helps with sensory, and they get an opportunity to build. Give them Play-Doh and have them build something. You can make your own Play-Doh that's gluten-free. There are recipes all over Pinterest. But give them an opportunity to build. And if you think that it's only the boys that need to build, my friends, I must tell you, you are so wrong. The girls need to build too. Maybe they want to build different things. And that's okay, but let them build. Let their creativity go. Let them see the fruits of their labors. Let them destroy it if they want to. Meet them wherever they are technologically. So for your older kids, there are ways, there are apps that they can use to build their own video games. Have your child build this summer. You won't be sorry that you did. All right, moving on. I guess you know what's coming last. Number 5 is to splash. For our kiddos that are on the autism spectrum, frequently they are physically not as coordinated as the other kids. That's not always the case, but it is frequently the case. And then if you imagine we have to take them to this center to do this therapy, we have to take them to the OT, and while they're doing all these things, other kids are on the playground and they're pulling themselves up and doing all of these physical skills and building their bodies and understanding things that are across the body. They're engaged in that physical activity. Summer is a great time for us to catch up with our kids, and one of the best ways to physically give our kids something that's reinforcing and have them catch up is to get them in the water. If you have access to a regular pool, what a great thing, because it is a whole body thing. It helps to cool them down. The pressure of it, of being in the water, even if they don't stick their head underwater, it's pressure on their bodies. We know that that is a stress reliever. It's part of the reason why a lot of our kids are drawn to the water. Give them an opportunity to splash. Give them the skills, if you can, to learn how to swim. There's a great book from our friend Tammy, and I can't think of her last name right now, but it's Autism and Swimming. You can't miss that. I encourage you to get the book because it's amazing. You can be working on things with your child. You can give it to somebody that's teaching swimming lessons to have them be able to apply what they learned from Tammy's book so that they can be the best possible swim teacher for your child. Make sure that they're safe in the water. That's key, but it is so reinforcing. It will help them to sleep better so that they can come to the other 4 in a better way. And there's all kinds of lessons that you can do in the pool. If you need to be working on something that's hard, work on it in the pool. You'd be surprised of all the things that you can do. Waiting, nope, we got to wait to the count of 10 before we jump in the pool and make it fun. All right, we're all going to line up and we're all going to jump in the pool, but we have to wait 1, 2, and your kid will learn, oh, okay, it's okay to wait. Learning to leave a preferred activity, like when it's time to go home, make sure that you say, okay, we're going in 5 minutes, we're going in 4 minutes, we're going in 3 minutes, we're leaving now, and make sure that there's something reinforcing for them to get out of the pool and they know that they get a treat for getting out the first time you ask. I watched a dad the other day in the pool go, get out for 10 minutes to his kids, and they didn't get out. Why? Why should they get out? There's got to be something reinforcing to get them out, and you teach them to trust you, that if they do what you want them to do, everything is good. Okay, I'm being told that we're out of time, and I just want to take a quick second to tell you that on the show on Wednesday, Nancy Allspot Jackson is back, and we're having Cornelia Suskin from Life Animated. She's going to be on the show with us. We're very excited about that. The first hour on Wednesday, we don't have Dr. Graham Pichet, but we are going to have On the Spectrum with Matt Asner. You're going to want to miss that. He's got a fabulous guest. I'll tell you about it over the weekend because I don't know that it's absolutely confirmed, but you're going to love it. And then on Thursday, we are welcoming back to the show Daniel Wenkin. I think I'm saying his last name wrong. Fabulous, on the spectrum, so brilliant, and writes about how he gains social skills and how individuals who are on the spectrum can do social skills. I'm out of time. Give your kiddos a hug from me and have a wonderful 4th of July that's safe and fabulous, and give yourself a hug too. All right, talk to you soon. Bye-bye for now.